Hey, welcome back everybody. Tanner Garcia here. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for bearing with me. I was getting over my sickness. I was not down with it. And I appreciate you guys sticking around. So today I'm going to be bringing you a very quick tutorial on frequency separation. One way that I like to edit skin. In no way is this going to be in depth and technical as to what is actually going on. Only what you need to do to actually achieve a very nice, somewhat glamorous, higher end skin editing technique. By all means, use this at your own discretion. I'm not going to be responsible for anybody making anybody look like a Ken doll or a Barbie doll or a doll for that matter. So let's go ahead and jump into Lightroom, grab the image that we're going to work on, pop it over into Photoshop, show you the technique, and then bring it back into Lightroom and look at the before and after pictures and see what the differences are, and away we go. So let's go ahead and get Lightroom opened up here. And all right, so now we have Lightroom opened up. This image is of the wonderful Miss Vanessa Sherry again, and I shot this right back here on this empty spot on the wall using my Rotolight Neo 2 on this side, just making the light very warm. And then I used my Bolin P1 5-inch LED RGB light panel, which I have right back here with the green light. And this was just to mess around with multiple color lights. It was not a project of any sort. It was just an artistic shoot. So the first thing that I always do is remove chromatic aberration and enable profile correction. As you can see, I shot this with the Tamron 28-75 on my Sony a7 III, and then I'll come up over here and hit auto. If we look at the histogram, you'll see that it's an ISO 320. I shot at 70 millimeters. An f2.8, that's the widest that this lens goes to, and at 1/100th of a second. So right off the bat, the auto is too bright for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring this down. That looks about good right there. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and right click and go to edit in Adobe Photoshop, and we'll give this a second to populate and open up Adobe Photoshop. Doobie 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 doo. All right, and we are finally here. So the first thing that I like to do whenever I open up an image in Photoshop is let me go ahead and zoom in and take a look around. Vanessa has a very nice and smooth skin. She really doesn't need any editing. But I'm going to use this image for the sake of this video. First things first, I like to grab my healing brush tool and just go around and find these slightly elevated spots and just kind of work those in a little bit. We'll get this one right here, that right there. Let me zoom out. Right here, I think that was something I already covered. Right there, just little spots that are a little bit highlighted. And I know I saw one right here that I was gonna take care of, and maybe this right here. All right, the next thing I noticed is that she has hair running across her face. So using the same tool, I'm going to zoom in and just use my left bracket to minimize my brush size, and I'm going to trace where that hair is at in small sections to give the best blending without going a whole chunk at a time. And I'm just trying to get rid of this dark line on her skin. And then once we zoom out, kind of take a look, open this up a little bit, kind of go over that again. And I don't know if any of you edit using like any type of tablet or a Wacom pad. Let me know in the comment section below if you do and if you like it, because I'm thinking about getting one. I don't know how I feel editing little details like this with a mouse, but once we get to this point, I'm happy with that. Oh look, here's one more hair, so let's hurry up and zoom in and get rid of that one real quick. I can't do it, Captain. I don't have the power. Just kind of break it up in her brow a little bit. And she does such a great job with her brows. I'm not trying to be a fangirl at the moment, but when you work with certain people, you can tell who takes the time to make themselves presentable, and it makes your job a lot easier when you're shooting portraits. And there's some people that their mentality is, oh, you can just Photoshop it. And as you can tell, just Photoshopping it is not always very efficient of a way to take care of it. So I always prefer to try and take care of everything in camera as often as possible. So if I gotta shoot over again the way I did this video, this is like my third attempt. The last one I recorded a second ago. Are you kidding me? Why is my phone going off? Okay. Chelsea, that was you. Yeah, anyway, I had a big old thread here in my shoulder and it was just aggravating. So instead of trying to take it out in Premiere, I just scrapped it and started over. All right, so anyway, back to the image. So what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna make sure that my background is selected, and on a Mac I'm gonna hit Command J twice and make 2 copies. You can always on a PC, I guess it would be Control. I don't know, I haven't used a Mac in forever. I mean, I haven't used a PC in forever, so please forgive me, PC people. But the point is, you're gonna duplicate your background layer twice, and then on this first layer I'm gonna jump up and hit filter and go down to blur, select Gaussian blur, must be French, must be Italian, there we go, for Jilly. And right here we're going to select a radius of 6 pixels. I like to go between 5 and 7. It just depends on the image, and for me I find that 6 usually works pretty well. And then hit OK. And if we turn off the top layer, you will see that everything is what seems to be slightly out of focus. It has that blur over the entire image. And let's go and turn the top layer back on. We'll see that we're back on track. Now we select the top layer, layer 1 copy, and we're going to go to image and apply image. And it looks really odd. And so from this menu, we're going to select layer 1. And it's always going to be your middle layer. Whatever you decide to name these at whatever point that you're naming them, always select this middle layer. And blending mode, we're going to go to subtract. Opacity is always going to be 100. Scale will always be 2, and offset will always be 128. Tanner, why is it always 2 and 128? Dude, I don't know, to be honest. And maybe it's bad that I kind of don't care why it's always 2 and 128, but that's what you need it to be at. If you really want to know, I'll research it, and maybe we can make an entire video on why scale is 2 and offset is 128. Go ahead and hit OK. Now you have this really odd looking image. this is where you want to be so far. And then when you come over to the right hand side above the layers, you'll go to your blending options here and make sure your top layer is selected and go from normal and take it to linear light. And once you select linear light, you'll see that your image now looks the way that it was when you started, with the exception of you have 3 layers of it, and layer 1, copy your top layer on the right hand side, looks grayed out. All right, so from this point, you're gonna go ahead and select your second layer. Come up to your left hand side and select your lasso tool. And what the purpose of this is that we're now going to be blending the colors underneath to get rid of any type of blotches, any type of splotches, splotchiness, any type of imperfections, and just kind of smooth out and blend the colors together while retaining the texture of the skin. So I'll start with her forehead and just kind of keep the green more so to the green. And once I have once I have my selection selected, I'll go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and let me start off with, like, let's say 18 and hit OK. And then if I hit Command D and deselect, and let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit, you can see the difference of where her skin is here on the orange side compared to the green side. It looks smoother here, but when you zoom in and actually look close, kind of pixel peep, you're going to see that the texture is still there. So it still looks like skin, it just looks a little bit smoother. Let's zoom out and do the next side and just kind of follow along. Try not to get any hair, try not to get any hard edges like her glasses. Don't go over the eyes, it's just going to make it look very odd. I'll go to filter, and since the last one I used, I'm going to use it again, which was 18 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and just select it from the top portion, and it's going to blur that as well. And then let me go ahead and get her, let me deselect that, get a better selection here, get her eyelids, filter, select Gaussian blur, filter, select Gaussian blur. All right, now we're going to come down to her eyes, well, under her eyes, and I could select all of it, but I want to make sure that I keep that frame from getting blurred out. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to change this up, and let's try at 15. That looks pretty good right there. Come to the other side, and we'll hit that with a 15 as well, and just start working my way down. I try to make sure that I don't get any hair. I try to make sure that you don't get the lips. I'll show you on the other side what that looks like when you get the lips. I watch the edges of the nose and try and keep some of the original texture there. Gaussian blur, we'll blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to change this to, let's see what 13 looks like. That looks pretty good right there. So if I come and get this selection and I cover her mouth to make it easier, and I come around and get her hair and I select that, it's just going to look very odd. It doesn't look, there's no clean lines, there's no definition, it just looks horrible. So let's make the proper selection, keeping away from her mouth, keeping away from the edge of her face and her jawline, and add that filter, and there we go. And then once we deselect, you can see that there's still definition. You can still see her eyes are in focus, her hair looks great, her lips have texture, and now her skin just looks a little bit smoother. We'll go to file and save, and it'll pop us back into Lightroom, and we'll come over here and take a gander. In case you haven't noticed, I like that word, gander. And I'm out of coffee. Very, very sad moment right now. Where am I at? Here we go. All right, so we notice here we are on a .tiff. pop on over to the original raw image, and you can see the difference before and after. Now, like I said, it isn't that she needed the editing. This is just for the sake of this video. But that is a quick, very easy rundown on frequency separation. Mind you, if you're going to use this on the neck, you're going to use this on arms and legs, thighs. If you're using it on women and there's cleavage, be careful not to just circle the whole chest area, because it's going to look very odd. It's going to look very fake. It's going to look crappy. And we already have enough crappy photographers running around. Heads up, in case you didn't know, just because you have an expensive camera does not make you a photographer. Like I said, I am not a professional photographer. I am trying to get to that point, so I take my own advice. Trust me, I have terabytes upon terabytes of images that will never see the light of day because they are horrible. So be conscious of what you put forth into this world for everybody's sake. Anyhow, I digress. If you have any questions about the process of something's not quite working right, drop a comment, ask. Feel free to message me on Instagram at Tanner Garcia Photo. I think what I'm going to do is get a poster board behind my camera and frame it so I know where to point with what I'm talking about. But anyhow, if you can go ahead and follow me on Instagram at Tanner Garcia Photo. Make sure to give the wonderful Vanessa Sherry a follow at Underground Velma. I'll have the link in the description. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications, tell your friends about it, and I will see you beautiful people in a couple of days. I don't know. I'll find out, but anyhow,